Hey everyone, you ever get that feeling like you're just spinning your wheels, stuck in a rut? Well, today we're going to dive into something kind of cool. It's almost like turning that blah feeling into a rocket.
Yeah, we're talking about how sometimes feeling totally fed up, like you've had it, can be the push you need to make some serious changes in your life.
It does seem kind of backwards, doesn't it?
hmm
Like, fed up doesn't exactly scream happy times. But what's wild is that it can be the kick in the pants that gets us growing, like really growing as people.
Okay, so how does that even work? I mean, it's not like frustration just magically transforms into action, right?
Well, not magic exactly, but there's definitely a change that happens, a shift. It's like, think about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes we got to get to that point, that feeling of enough is enough before we're ready to actually do something different.
I get it. That moment when you're like, I'm done with this, and you finally decide to, make a change. Yeah, totally. One of the ideas we're looking at today compares it to this full circle thing. Like, you go so far in one direction that you end up swinging all the way back to the opposite side.
Kind of like when a joke is so bad, it's actually funny. Or like someone's dressed so crazy that it somehow ends up being stylish.
Those are perfect examples. It's about hitting that extreme where everything flips and you're suddenly open to all these new possibilities that you wouldn't have considered before.
That actually makes me think about all the times we try to avoid feeling fed up. Like we grab for a quick fix or just distract ourselves instead of dealing with what's really bugging us.
Right, we want the easy way out, but honestly, real growth, like the stuff that sticks, usually comes from the tough stuff, the discomfort. It's about pushing past that initial ugh feeling to figure out what's really wrong
Oh.
and then making a change that matters.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This idea that our character, who we are, is tied to what we do. Like what we do shapes how we see ourselves, but how we see ourselves also affects what we do. The
Yeah.
kind of a loop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating cycle for sure. Our identity, like who we think we are, shapes our perspective, how we view the world. And that, in turn, guides our actions. Then those actions kind of reinforce our initial identity. It all feeds back into itself.
So it's like, if I think I'm bad at something, I'll probably avoid doing it, which then just proves to myself that I'm bad at it.
Exactly. But here's the cool part. We don't have to be stuck in those loops. When we start to recognize our own beliefs and make different choices, we can actually change how we see ourselves and create, like, better patterns in our lives.
Okay, so there's this visualization thing that really brings this home. Like, picture a bird. Everyone's going to see something a little different in their mind, but we all get the basic idea of bird, right? It shows how our own experiences and what we believe color how we see things, even when we're all looking at the same basic thing.
That's a great way to put it. It highlights that we all have our own lens. Being aware of that helps us understand ourselves better and even understand other people better because, well, there's more than one way to see things.
So how does all this tie back to turning fed up into fired up? Like, how do we break out of those not so great cycles and actually use our frustration to do something good?
A big piece of the puzzle is figuring out our goals. Like, are these really our own goals, the things we truly want, or are they coming from somewhere else, like pressure from other people? This is where that comparison between a bodybuilder and, say, a political ideologue comes in.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so you've got your bodybuilder, right? They set goals based on what they love, what they're driven by. They want to get super fit, win competitions, that kind of thing. It comes from inside them. Then you've got your political ideologue, someone who might be all about the agenda of their group, their beliefs.
So it's kind of like, who's really calling the shots in our lives? Are we going after things that truly light us up, or are we just following someone else's map?
Exactly. And that brings us to this other really interesting idea. Like, our lives are kind of like stories with all the ups and downs, and they have their own climaxes.
Hold on, are we talking about our lives as actual stories here? Like with plots and characters and all that?
In a way, yeah. Think about how a good story works. You've got the build-up, the conflict, that big moment, the climax, and then how it all wraps up. It's those tough parts, the conflicts, that make the good parts even better.
It's like, what's that saying? Can't have a rainbow without a little rain. Those fed up times are kind of like the rain that helps our own rainbows shine brighter.
Totally. And just like in a story, it's how we deal with those tough times that shows who we really are. Do we let those challenges crush us? Or do we use them to become like the heroes of our own story?
So how do we actually take those fed up feelings and use them to move forward? It's like there's some kind of magic trick involved.
That's where this thing called emotional transmutation comes in. It's about taking those raw negative emotions, the anger, the frustration, all that fed up energy, and turning it into something good.
Okay, gotta admit, that does sound kind of magical. Like, do we need a secret potion or something?
Nah, no potions needed. But changing how we think is key. Think about it like mental Tai Chi. Instead of letting those negative emotions knock us down, we learn to redirect them, use that energy to do something positive.
So it's not about pretending we don't feel those things, but using them as fuel.
Mhm.
Like taking all that anger and frustration and putting it into working out or a creative project, something like that.
Exactly. And the results can be amazing. Like some people end up starting a successful business after losing everything, or they get super healthy after a tough breakup. It's like those fed up moments become the seeds for something new and awesome.
Wow, it's like those tough experiences can actually birth something beautiful.
You got it. And speaking of new and beautiful, let's talk about holistic entrepreneurship. It's this idea that we can all be entrepreneurs, not necessarily like starting a company, but in how we live our lives and create value in the world.
You know, when I hear entrepreneurship, I automatically think of like starting a business or launching a product. But you're saying it's way bigger than that.
It is bigger, for sure. It's like we can all be entrepreneurs in the sense of taking charge of our own lives, figuring out what we're passionate about, and using our skills and experiences to make a difference.
So it's about being proactive, being creative, even if we don't have entrepreneur on our business card.
You got it. There are 5 key points to this whole approach, and they're worth exploring. The first one is this idea that everyone's an entrepreneur. Like we all have something special to offer, unique skills and talents we can use to create value. It doesn't matter if it's in a regular job, a side hustle, or even just our personal lives.
I love that. It's like we all have the power to create our own lives, our own experiences.
And the second point builds on that. It's this idea that social media isn't just a website, it's like a whole new society where we can connect with people, share ideas, and build communities around the things we love.
It really is amazing how powerful social media has become
Hmm.
for connecting and creating. Right.
Totally. And this leads right into the third point, which is kind of mind-blowing. It's this idea that we've basically problem solved our way to do what you love.
Wait, what does that even mean?
Think about it. Humans have always been driven to solve problems. It's how we evolved, how we got where we are. But now, thanks to technology and the internet, we can actually make a living by solving problems we care about, by doing things we love.
That's incredible. Like we could actually combine our passions with our work and make a living doing it.
Yep, we can create lives that are both meaningful and exciting. And that brings us to the fourth point, which I think really hits home with what we're talking about today. It's this idea that you are the most profitable niche.
Whoa, that's a bold statement. Can you break that down for me?
It means your experiences, your skills, your perspective, all of it is super valuable. You have a story to tell, something to share, solutions to offer that no one else can.
So it's about embracing what makes us different and using those unique things to make a positive impact.
Exactly. And that leads us to the final point, which is all about being a creator, not just as a job, but as a way of life. Real fulfillment comes from creating, whether it's building a business, writing a book, making art, or even just helping other people.
I love that. It's like that Arnold Schwarzenegger quote about the pump you get from working out.
It's a perfect comparison. Creating gives you that same kind of satisfaction, that feeling of being totally in the zone and loving what you're doing.
So it's about recognizing our potential, using our experiences to create value, and finding joy in the process of making something new.
Exactly. And it all goes back to that initial spark of being fed up. That feeling can be the thing that pushes us toward growth and creation.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've
Mhm.
covered so much, from the power of fed up to holistic entrepreneurship and the amazing potential we all have inside us.
It's been a blast exploring all this with you, and I hope you're feeling inspired, ready to take action. Remember, those fed up times aren't setbacks. They're like signs pointing you to a better path. It really is something to think about, isn't it? Like, take some time to really chew on that idea. Think about those times you felt most frustrated, those things that just didn't sit right with you. What kind of changes do you want to see in the world or even just in your own life?
Yeah, it's like taking all that bottled up energy and focusing it on something, right? Instead of letting it eat away at you, Use it to create something awesome.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about the end goal, the journey, the whole process of learning and trying things and growing. That's just as important.
It's like when you're working on something you're really into.
Yeah.
You know, you get in that zone and time just flies by.
That's the best part. And it doesn't matter what you're creating. It could be a business, a painting, learning a new skill, or even just making your community a better place. That feeling of fulfillment that comes from tapping into your own creative energy.
This whole deep dive has been amazing. We talked about the power of feeling fed up, this idea of holistic entrepreneurship, and how much potential each of us has.
It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? I hope you're leaving with a sense of what's possible, that fire to create something amazing. Remember, you have everything you need to turn those fed up moments into something that makes your life better, more meaningful.
That's all the time we have for our deep dive today. Thanks for joining us and exploring these ideas with us. Now go out there and make something incredible happen.